back to the review segment of the Power Breakfast Show. Mheshimiwa Wilbur Otichilo, Member of Parliament for Muhaya, aspiring Governor, Vihiga County. Mheshimiwa Mudhomi Njuki, Member of Parliament for Chuka Igamba Ngombe, aspiring Governor for Tharaka Nithi County, and Cynthia Mutere, Chair Women League, as well as Governance Analyst. Before we took the commercial break, we were looking at a story about the likelihood or the unlikelihood, depending on which side you are, of about 50% members of Parliament not making it back to Parliament, according to a survey. Now, I just asked you that the research says, the survey says, Jubilee supporters feel those who have become from the opposition to Jubilee, 53%, 57% have done that because of development.
First, even going back to the survey, they even failed to capture that 4 members of Parliament, male members of Parliament, have not even made their maiden speech. I'm sure that should be an outcry. 4 people have not even made a maiden speech.
How hard is it for an MP to attract the attention, catch the attention of the speaker? How difficult is it?
Well, I do not know where Madam got that from.
From surveys that have been done. These are in workshops. That's why we encourage women
that for 4 years you would not have uttered a word in Parliament. But I know the implementation of most of the work in Parliament is not done in the chambers, on the floor of the House. It's usually done in the committees. And that is one thing that the survey usually does not pick up, because there's a lot of work that goes on there before you come to the floor of the House.
Does it mean the floor of the House is a lesser duty?
Well, what happens in the floor of the House is we have 350 members of Parliament, and we normally have a session of about 3 to 4 hours.
Every day? Every Tuesday?
Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, right? And how do you...
Wednesday you have more, yeah? You have morning
and afternoon session. How do you expect... How many members of Parliament can be able to speak in that 1 hour? We need among those members. And you know, you don't just put you alert the speaker, and then you just wake up and say one word and sit down. People speak for 20 minutes. Others speak for 15 minutes.
But Mheshimiwa Mudhomi, how is it that in political rallies where you have 20 aspirants and 30 sitting MPs and it's 1 hour, you all scramble for a chance to speak?
By the way, I am all speaking for Wilbur Otichilo. Neither am I speaking for Njuki. I mean, Wilbur and I here have spoken for
1,001 times.
1,000 times. But I'm looking at those members of Parliament really who may be not in a position to be having an agenda on the floor of the House, but respond to same in the committees.
They need to go home.
Well, there's need maybe just for the sake of appeasing the people, probably to come and say something. But I was just to tell her how, you asked me how difficult it is, and I was giving you the number that we have today compared to the number we had that time for Wilbur is totally different. From 210 constituencies to 290.
Wilbur, and how hard is it?
47. I want to say it's not hard.
It's not hard.
It's not hard. It's the question of interest. You know, in Parliament, we have 2 sessions. The first session deals with the normal issues, people raising statements, petitions, and so on. So that takes about an hour. After that, we go to the serious business of the House, which is legislation. And this is where we expect serious members of Parliament to sit. And that's the time where, to be able to sit in that session of legislation, you need to have read the bills that are going to be on the order paper, that are going to be discussed. And this is where the trick is. Most members of Parliament only come to the sessions when the general talk. But when it comes now to serious business of the House, discussing bills, most of the members of Parliament walk out of the House because they have not read the bills. And I can assure you, if you read the bills, and like my brother here, I know, he is very serious. When you are a guy who is interested in reading the bills and contributing, you will have plenty of time. In fact, by around, as the bills start around 4, by around 5:30, 6, the House is almost empty. So if you have read your bills and you come even at 6, you have all plenty of time.
And reading the bills is part of the legislative process.
That is the biggest, the assignment.
And so anybody who does not participate in this should go home.
And you find that personality now translates back to the constituency, because if you have that laid-back kind of attitude and personality, then you're not that energized to push for things. Even at the constituency
Charles, the reason I'm laughing is because we are the same members of parliament and the public would refuse for us to implement the qualifications for the members of parliament.
How did the public refuse? The public doesn't
when you see members of parliament speaking, they speak for the people who represent. I don't speak for them.
Is that true?
Yes. What if I had a PhD? If I had a PhD, I'd be very studious, I'd be locked into my books, I'd be able to read those books. And then to be pragmatic at the constituency level, where you're trying to appease and satisfy the people, then would be a problem, because then you have to have a balance between your academic qualifications as well as pragmatism, to be able to work with the people, to have that public participation in the constituency where people are involved. Your CDF is moving and it is prioritizing the needs of the people, so that you're seen to work, and to be able to also step out of your own comfort zone beyond your oversight and representation responsibilities, to go and knock at doors, knock at the governor's door, find out why is there no water, why is there no, because you said that some of these issues have been removed from the
From your position as a governance analyst, do these lawmakers really go down and consult their voters on critical bills? And
hardly. In practice, what I've seen, hardly. They do go back. They do go, and not to sit and say, what should I take to the floor of the House? I don't see that consultation. They come and inform.
I think that is a
from
bit unfair.
My experience, okay, they do have, of course they must be in touch with the people. They do have their people that they work with. But what I'm saying is that then the laws are not being fed from the grassroots. It's a top-down
rather than
approach,
down-up.
Bottom-up approach. I would say in many cases.
That's not true. When a bill...
Is it generally not true, or your constituency?
No, it's not true. Generally, it's not true. Because when a bill is being drafted, normally it's the relevant ministry that does that. And during the drafting of the bill, it starts with the grassroots. The ministry will take it to the grassroots. They will have workshops in various counties, and from there it comes up until we have a general national conference where people discuss. We have stakeholders who discuss. By the time the bill comes to the House, it's gone through a very rigorous process. And once in the House, again, once it's committed to a specific department, like a committee like education, then again the education committee has to call the stakeholders, and we always advertise in papers that this bill is being discussed. You can bring in your memorandum.
Now that's the catch.
So where's the
how many Kenyans read the paper?
That's where the catch is, and I can tell you, yes, it's true that most of the ordinary Wanjiku on the ground may not.
But there's a different avenue that you may have left out. During the drafting of the bill, and once it's taken to the relevant committee, there's something called public participation. It's not taken to the whole of Kenya. If I have a bill that is on tobacco bill, for example, I have no business taking it to people who grow coffee and don't grow tobacco. So I'll go to identify tobacco growing areas. We'll have a public meeting participation, and we discuss with them. I'm just giving an example of the tobacco bill. And so is the other issues. Anything that is maybe touching on coffee, I'll not take it to the people who grow cotton. So it may not be uniform all over Kenya, but at least I know there's public participation space when we are drafting and implementing the bill.
Yes. So in your opinion, should 46% of MPs not come back, considering all these, like the survey says? This is the people's voice.
You see, the people's voice
is God's voice.
Must prevail, because we are there, we work for the people, and it's the people to make a decision whether we have delivered or we have not delivered. So to me, the decision still lies with the people. They will decide. But I can tell you from my experience, since I'm a second term, I can tell you those figures, we expect even, personally I think we expect even 70%.
What should the people look for when they make a decision on whether to bring your colleagues back or not?
I'm of opinion that there should be more understanding by the voters on the roles of a member of parliament. The law of member of parliament is not only speaking on the floor of the House. You can speak on the floor of the House and get nothing for your people.
Make laws?
You can make laws.
Supervise the government.
But you may do all those things, but you don't do anything for your people. Because one of the very important roles of a member of parliament is to be able to lobby for resources for the people. And that is not just done on the floor of the House. That can be done through petitions, all right? But there's a lot of work that goes on there, in the committees, in visiting ministries and all that, and following up on issues. So what they should actually look for is delivery of service on the ground. What we have, vis-a-vis what we didn't have that time, that has come and is being lobbied by the member of parliament. That's the most important thing. Not how many times is
on a scale of 1 to 10, yes, how many MPs do you think will come back? 1, 10, 9?
I am hoping that we can be able to get at least 50%.
50%.
Yes.
So you are almost at par with this survey. Mheshimiwa Wilbur Tichilo.
I think probably be on the conservative side about 60%.
60%.
Yeah.
Cynthia.
40%.
40%. So you have more faith in the serving members of parliament. Well then, we move on and we look at the story on the front page of the Standard. It says now MPs are likely to politicians generally, although they say how MPs can defeat Uhuru Raila poll rule. Now President Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition chief Raila Odinga's plan to curb party hopping in the August polls is likely to be dealt a blow by a loophole in the constitution and the subsidiary electoral laws. Apparently the period that is given about 3 months after nomination, that period given to independent candidates, some of your colleagues, politicians, may be riding on it. Cynthia?
I think the timelines should not worry people, because most of the timelines are for the institutions to make sure that certain things have been delivered. The IBC should be delivered. What politicians should be doing is actually now marketing what their Pacific coalition is doing or party is doing, and so that you find that then there will not be so much voter apathy. There's been a huge campaign to get the people out to register as voters, and now that we've gotten them out to register as voters, can we then bring them to actually vote? What are they voting for? Is it then once again a place where they're just being promised goodies by the establishment and not seeing those being delivered? In 4 years, actually, when we do a scorecard, we'll find some shortcomings, especially for the people.
Is there a loophole to be exploited?
Definitely there's a loophole there, and it's very unfortunate. You know, we were very busy conversing on the party hopping. You know, we forgot the small nitty-gritties that really is a panya root in this law. Because if we had stuck to 60 days before elections, and that is what was intended for, that you should actually be able to move from your parties and complete the nominations is before 60 days before elections. Now that would have been the best thing. But we moved it to 90 to 120. All right. That is 4 months. If you look at the timeline, it's actually 4 months. And you know, that was giving in people's minds was to deal with the reality of having been dropped out.
Was this intentional?
It was not intentional. People were just covering their backs. And then everybody forgot.
So it was intentional.
Everybody forgot about the independent candidates, because there are not so many. In people's mind, they were not thinking how they can be independent candidates, and therefore no one really looked at that.
So now if I lose
the 90 days,
I just become an independent candidate.
That is what is likely to happen, because it's there. No one wants just to walk home. So, and I don't know what can be done about this, except unless the ABC probably become unlawful and change the timelines. Right? It is definitely going to be there, and it's a loophole. However, it's not the same. It's not the same because a candidate who is in a party is not really the same as a candidate who is an independent, because there's more strength in numbers. There's warmth in when you are suffering or you're winning together rather than when you're winning alone.
How likely?
I would say it's just an alternative, but it's not as good an alternative as party hopping.
How likely is it for an independent candidate to win an election?
I think it's very likely, and my feelings that in the next 12th parliament we will have more independent candidates.
Because of this lacuna.
Because of this lacuna, but also when you now listen, Kenyans have become well enlightened about leadership, and I think people like Cynthia have done a good job, and people now are not bothered about which party you belong to. In most cases now, people are looking at the individual. What can you do? What is your conduct? How have you delivered before, whether in parliament or not? So I see quite a number of independent candidates coming in parliament. And also, in my view, from the experience of the 11th parliament, it would be nice to come on independent candidate, because if you are in parliament with on independent position, then you have a leeway. You have no baggage that you must be loyal to your party. You will become real independent person who can rationally look at issues without baggage.
How strongly rooted are independent candidates or independent representatives in the current dispensation? Are they strong enough on their own, or they are easily swayed?
They're easily swayed. You find that right now there is alignment. Right now they're either CORD or, NASA or Jubilee. Because you find that the people are disgruntled from the last time when we had the 6-piece voting. And we voted in, many rode on that wave. And when you had 6Ps having the president, the governor, the senator, all from one party, you find that certain ones in that lineup have not satisfied the voter. And so you find that then the people right now from civic education are now saying that we're not going to be looking at parties, we're going to be looking at individuals, people who can deliver.
I want to tell the voters out there who really want their members of the people they prefer to vote for, to urge their people to be in mainstream parties. And
mainstream parties.
I will tell you.
When
why.
you say mainstream parties,
yes,
which ones do you mean?
I will tell you why. I'm speaking from experience.
Which ones do you mean?
I came in through a very minor party that was called the BAS.
Okay, the ones we have now. I think this is very important.
Parties.
Mainstream
BAS was aligned to JP.
Jubilee and CORD.
I'll tell you why.
There's no longer Jubilee. We have killed CORD. Now it's NASA.
It's NASA. It can be NASA or whatever. To me, it's just the same thing. I'll tell you why. I'm speaking from experience, and I want to tell you what happens in parliament is not what we normally think when we are out there. First of all, I want you to remember that in the current parliament, we do not have any independent candidates.
We have. We have
very many. We have more than one.
Independent.
We don't have any independent candidates who are chairs of the parties, of chairs of committees, not even deputy chairs of committees. They're just, and they have the capacity. But the prerequisite for chairs of committees and deputy chairs of the committee, or most of the positions, are normally lobbied for by the parties. When you are out there as independent candidates, you are an orphan who is out there for adoption or hire by anyone who wants to really strengthen the numbers. And that's not a very comfortable position. It is only when you have no option that you should actually go as an independent candidate. But if you can be able to lobby for the party, it's the best for you people. I can tell you that.
Mheshimiwa Njuki here says his advice is let politicians stick to main parties. We are seeing a proliferation of small parties and a lot of movement to small parties. CCM, KANU, if
what
you want
you
to call
the
KANU
nomination,
Chama it's called what? Mandeleo, Chap. Are those main parties?
You know, those are not main parties, but you see, it's just the next option after you miss the bus. You know, you miss the bus, you pick a matatu, the smaller one. And if you miss that, you pick a boda boda.
Half a loaf is better than that.
You walk. You know? So let's agree. There's a difference.
But my feeling is that, there are more people we have in parliament, both in the assembly and the National Assembly and Senate, being independent. These individuals will come up with their own caucus and start demanding for their own rights.
Depending on the numbers.
Yeah, depending on and I believe the numbers are going to increase. I want to agree with my brother here. Yes, if you are in an independent party or a small party, when it comes to committees, you are actually marginalized, because the big parties will always front their people. But my also experience as a member of parliament has shown me that it doesn't matter whether you are a chair of a committee or not. What it means most is, in that committee, are you smart enough to push issues?
But it matters for you as an individual.
As an individual. If you are smart enough and you know the subject, let's say you are in the committee of, let's say, foreign affairs, and you are good at it, and you can articulate issues very well, I can assure you, any issue that comes in that committee, you'll always be on the first page.
You know, I'm wondering why my friend is not being realistic, even to himself. The reason why he's here is because he's a leader. He was elected among them, and he wanted to be the best. In a committee, the chair has more influence than any other member of the committee. So that is leadership. How on earth would you not want to have influence? Because at the end of the day, even when you have a crisis, the buck stops with the chair of the committee. So we cannot really dispute that that is not an influential
still on issues of
history has shown that then when you come into parliament, then there's a third progressive force that wants to start beginning to align themselves. People who are like rebels within the two coalitions
and let me tell
now
you,
begin to form themselves
into one caucus.
Yeah, and start spearheading a third progressive force.
Let me make this point. I want to agree with my brother Muthomi. What he has said is true. But this is one of the biggest drawback in the parliament. Most of the chairpersons of most committees, because they are elected on party affiliation, you will find most of them are not up to the task to those to those positions.
Because they were fronted by parties.
And so you find some of the committees are actually moribund. In fact, I want to tell you, some of the committees, some of the sharp guys in those committees end up taking up the committee, end up chairing the committee.
Laughing. Is this true?
Because the others, the chairs have just become, decoys.
I will tell you where he's coming from.
Yeah. Tell me where he's coming from.
You know, just like any other election, even the election of the committee chairs is a question of numbers. All right? And there are only 2 committees in the whole of the National Assembly who are led by the opposition, and that is pick and pack, and that is by default, because that is by law. So it means that there are very many sharp guys in the opposition. There should have been leading committees, but they're not leading because of their party.
Do that. That's true. That's
so if that needs to happen, then we need to change the law and then say that the majority, because the way the committees are made are such that the ruling party always has more slots in the committee than the opposition,
and so
that is what is called. That's the reason behind the leadership.
The honourable member is actually just validating the argument that we have heard, us who are outside, that then the opposition has the tyranny of brains or have the capacity to move government, and that's why you will find that there is a push by opposition saying that since we know how to do it, let us show you how it can be done and should be done, and we should take over government in the next election.
Did you just put yourself in a position here?
He's just validated the argument.
I have given facts on the table.
Facts on the table is that Jubilee does not have the
in the 12th parliament. If I were to go back to the 12th parliament, I would advocate for the changing of the standing orders, so that for committees, people should be elected as chairs depending on experience and qualification to make those committees real effective.
And this would be greater service to
Kenya. It would be a greater service to Kenya.
Food for thought for the people who will be elected.
Until he does that, the fact remains that
unfortunately he is unlikely.
That is moribund.
But I would give a free advice to Parliament that for chairs of committees at the National Assembly and the County Assembly, the chairs must be people who are qualified, experienced,
in the line.
Because let me tell you,
but I'm hoping Wilbur is not insinuating that we don't have qualified chairs of the committee.
We have.
But
we are talking. I didn't say that.
Not the qualification. Not the qualification.
I said that the members of the
I think what you're saying is that if it's a committee on health, the chair should be somebody with experience
in health.
Correct. And I know the chair of the committee of health is a doctor.
Around the same thing, and still on party issues. Now there is this push and pull about IEBC conducting nominations for parties. It was a story yesterday. It's been covered, albeit in small bits, in the papers today. Now I want us to move over to our director. If you have a story by our very own Francis Gashuri talking about nominations by IEBC before we go on with this.
The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission IEBC is in a catch-22 situation, caught between two extreme positions on the conduct of political parties' primaries that, according to electoral timelines, must be carried out between 13th and 26th of April.
Hatutaki ukora ya nomination. Na katiba ya Kenya inasema IEBC has a role to conduct party primaries.
Jubilee on one hand, insisting that IEBC must oversee the party primaries to assuage the fears of aspirants, mainly in its strongholds, who are keen on shifting to other political parties for fear of botched nominations and favoritism. On the other hand, the joint opposition team's affiliate parties have not sought the services of IEBC to conduct nominations and have instead delegated the role to their respective election boards.
Of course, our first wish is that which political parties would hold primaries without involving us. But the law is there, and those are some of the things we shall be engaging.
Then there is the controversial question of who will finance the party primaries. While the recently passed Election Laws Amendment Act provides that Parliament shall allocate funds for party nominations, no such allocations have been made in the 2016-2017 budget. IEBC is yet to craft nomination regulations.
There's some ambiguity in the law with respect to this particular issue of IEBC helping in the nomination process, because while the law says that the IEBC should help in the nomination process when asked by a party, that law does not provide on how this should be funded, and the IEBC has not been allocated such funds.
A ruling by High Court Judge John Mativo on Thursday complicated the matter. In his verdict, he ruled that no law provides the mechanism of funding political party activities apart from the political party's fund that is allocated equitably every financial year, depending on party strength, based on performance in the preceding general election. IEBC is also reluctant to oversee the party primaries to avoid denting its image.
Capacity we have, but we are talking about logistics. And we're also talking about our timelines towards the August 8th general election. We have a lot of things on our table. We have to do the register which you have mentioned. We have to do verification. We have to do a lot of things related to voter education and others. So it's more of the workload which you have.
And should any disputes arise from the nominations, IEBC has a role to play, this adding to the Commission's dilemma due to the obvious conflict of interest.
So how can they be arbitrators and at the same time be the ones who help us conduct it? So there's some conflicts there.
The law bars aspirants who lose in nominations from hopping to other political parties or contesting as independent candidates.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Francis Gashuri, Public First News.
Now, the Standard today has a lot more on that in their special pull-out, 168 days to elections, Siasa 2017, and many more interesting stories. Jubilee wrong on funding primaries, says Opio and I, as Raphael Tuju says, nobody should purport to talk on behalf of the poll agency over time constraints. But we are seeing this rather conflicts.
One of the things that the Kriegler Commission recommended is that polling agents and primaries should be done by the Electoral Commission to kind of get free and fair elections, or candidates who are coming into the general elections that have been supervised by the electoral body. I think some of those reforms were now put into the Elections Act and election laws, and we've seen from the clip there where they're saying it's not like written in stone. And so you will find that the IEBC then can do an induction for the national election boards of particular parties, either in NASA or in JP, and have them now do their own primaries. So it's not IEBC to actually physically go and conduct, although Jubilee Party has said that they want IEBC to do that. But for NASA, what the national election boards are doing are then now getting the training, it's like a TOT, and then having their national election boards carry out the primaries themselves.
Considering how murky our nominations normally get to be, especially in what is perceived as zones for different coalitions or parties, how good is this for the integrity of the poll agency?
Well, first of all, allow me to note that I realize Cynthia is not very independent. She's a bit partisan, because she said that
what did I say?
yeah, she said that the opposition has the tyrant of brains when it comes to members.
No, she said you are confirmed.
The chairs of the committee are only confirmed that they only have 2 chairs, and therefore they would have liked to have more who can serve. The other chairs are from the Jubilee Party, and they are fully qualified. They are there by the virtue of the fact that they were picked from among the Jubilee members. And the elections are not only done by the Jubilee members, they are also done by the members of the opposition who are in the committees.
But who are
my comment came from what you had explained.
And therefore, I want to clarify that show independence in this on this panel. So that unless
I was only picking up on what you had said.
Having said that. The issue of the nomination, now it is anchored in the law that the IEBC may, if you request IEBC, they can do your nominations. And I am very surprised that what he is calling NASA are not interested. And I tell you, it's not they're not interested. They're not ready.
You said The law says may.
You may.
Not shall.
Not shall.
You in the National Assembly.
Yes, you may.
Shall is mandatory.
Meaning
shall is optional.
Yes, meaning if you request, they can consider doing it.
But right? So NASA are not interested.
They're not interested. I'll tell you when they're not interested, because they're not ready.
Who told you are not ready?
You're not ready.
Do you think in their meetings?
I want to tell you.
I just told you there's been an induction course that IBC has done with the National Election Board.
Who, in their right senses, do not want an independent body to conduct their nominations, unless two things. One, if you allow independent body to conduct their nominations, then you lose your powers to manipulate them. Right? Because there are some of these parties that usually like manipulating their party nomination. And that is why I've heard guys in NASA saying that you have to toe the line, otherwise you'll miss that ticket, you know? Because it's somebody who gives the ticket.
So your side, which I want to believe is Jubilee.
My side is Jubilee.
So your side,
we would like to have the nominations conducted by EBC, because we're not interested in manipulating those nominations.
So you believe in your side, your nominations conducted by IBC will be credible.
It will be free.
Why are members moving from your party to other parties?
Well,
and they are citing the uncertainty.
We already agreed with you that people like increases the chances of being even the ballot paper. You know, when you are on the ballot paper, you can say, at least I tried. And I told you that if you sense defeat, you always try to look for another way that you can have an excuse to actually be able to say, I tried, but I didn't get there. But because these people who are saying that they want to run away because they feel that the nomination is going to be fair, what are their real reasons? Because one, we do
because
not have...
the appointment are people who are their presupposed opponents.
That is why we want to have the nominations, because politics is a matter of perception. You may look at me right now and say, this guy is pro-Jubilee, and if you put him here, he will not look at the real issues. Well, on the other hand, I'm very independent.
Let's take two examples. These have been
a quick one, then we hear from
a very quick one. We have had two officials who have come from missions abroad and come back to the ground and heard what the people are saying on the ground. We have had Professor Ogeri, who comes from Kisii, and we have had Makwere coming back. And when they come back from being ambassadors outside of the country, and they come back and they hear from the ground, where would you people want us to go? And they hear that this is the way that we want to go. Then it is not them making the decision from their own selfish interest. They're moving with the people. They feel that the Jubilee government has not delivered for them, and therefore they feel that they should move with the opposition.
You see,
I'll come to you. Hold it.
That is a confirmation of what I told you a few minutes ago.
Hold it right there.
She speaks for God.
Why would the two ambassadors move and they have been outside the country?
Hold it right there. You tell me in a short while. Okay, Cynthia, Mheshimiwa, hold it right there. I'll give you a chance. Wilbur, he has cast aspersions on the credibility, on the credibility of your nomination process as NASA.
I think he is wrong, and he's my good friend, and he should retract that, because we as NASA, we have come out with an independent technical committee that is crafting on how we are going to be able to carry out our...
Why aren't you comfortable with IEBC doing this?
No, look, a party must have confidence in itself. If you are a party like we are here, if you are not confident in itself, you can't trust yourself. You want somebody else to do everything for you. Then it means that this party, there's a lot of things that are not right. And I want to talk as an ODM, because I'm a founder member of ODM, and I've been in ODM for the last 12 years. We have a national election board which is independent, and it was elected independently, and it's carrying out it's come up with its own regulation and how we are going to carry out our primaries. So we have a lot of confidence in that system.
Thank you. You were saying you want to give us reasons why the mission officers are coming back and saying what they are saying.
I said first and foremost that confirmed that Cynthia is not really...
in a short while, I'll ask her to declare which side she is in here.
But now it's better because I know how to deal with her.
You want to deal with my guest?
Not really. The issue is not right.
Okay.
One, Makwele is an opportunist. A very serious opportunity, because he saw a gap. When the Muvuria, the governor of Kwale, they come to Jubilee, and that is a person who ran against him the other time, and yet the Jubilee are the ones who sponsored him, who gave him the ambassadorial position, and he wanted to run again. He did not have any other option. rather than going to the other party that is opposite to what Mvurya has. So this man is taking care of his political selfish interest. And it is being interpreted here by Cynthia to mean that people of Kwale have confidence in Makwere. Let us wait for the ballot paper. Let us wait to see at the ballot.
It's not far away. It's just 158
Let's wait and see. And on the other hand, in Kisii, it all depends on where the wave is moving. If Ongeri realized that the guy who is running for Senate in Kisii, who happens to be the former chair of OAIC, I think Mr.
Chris Obure.
Not Chris Obure. What is the name of this chair?
Nyachai.
He's the one who is running for the Senate, CIC, for the Senate, and he's on Jubilee. Where would Ongeri go automatically? He will have to go to the other party because there are two mainstream parties.
Is it because he doesn't think there will be fair nominations in Jubilee?
No, it's because he already feels that he's going to lose.
Why? Why would he feel
on the Jubilee ticket?
Which means that there is just a minute. I want to confirm. He already feels he's going to lose on the Jubilee ticket to Nyachai. That means he is not sure about the process.
No, it's not about the process. You assess the situation on the ground, and on both cases, and I want to confirm to Cynthia, it's got nothing to do with the people. It's got something to do with the selfish interest of the politician.
Really, my argument was that being a seasoned politician, it's got to do with the people. If you are a politician, you would come back to the ground and say, which way should we go? And the people are telling you, if you're going to make any chances, because you just don't want to be on the ballot paper. You want to win. And the only way you're going to win is to be with where the people are. And the people are in Nasa.
About both of this
now, what I want to tell them
in previous elections. So about being seasoned, yes, but being the best, it's up to the people.
Because what then you would want to say is that they would want to say
they lost because they didn't have what
they lost fairly
because they didn't have what
they didn't have the numbers. Yes.
Okay. Cynthia, you're saying something.
Yes, because what argument that the Mheshimiwa is saying is that then they would pledge their allegiance to the Jubilee Party. We saw that even with Mheshimiwa Kainseri, who's right now in Interior, when he's tried to move his people, they still voted in the by-election for the opposition. And even when you want to even stand and say that Jubilee has done this for this, the people know you cannot hoodwink them.
We'll be talking more about this and many more, but I want us to quickly move to page 4 of the Standard. Page 4 of the Standard says, why August 8th poll winners will be determined by whoever bags most swing votes. Now, according to latest figures from, this is what the story says, from IEBC as at February 14th, 3.5 million Kenyans had listed as new voters. Now, a study of the figures revealed that perceived strongholds of both Jubilee and opposition listed almost equal numbers, with the opposition having a head start of 58,000. What do you think? This voter registration exercise is going to determine who carries the day?
Not necessarily, because it depends. Between now and the election time, there is going to be a lot that will take place, and it will depend on how each of these mainstream parties are going to articulate their issues, their policies, and their aspirations. So I can tell you it can change, but it will depend which direction the campaign is going to take.
Mheshimiwa Mudhomi Njuki, Tharaka Nithi, your county, is known to be posting very high figures. What's the secret?
Well, I think we are a very small county. Not I think, I know we are a very small.
Small in size, small in numbers?
In both size and numbers.
How many constituencies?
How many constituencies? 3 constituencies.
A whole county?
But, yes, our
population.
But I want to tell you that the voter turnout in Tharaka Nithi is normally very, very high.
How high?
Almost everybody, about 95%, 95 to 98%. And it is because of our small numbers. We need to use all the numbers that we have.
How far is it from Nairobi?
It's 180 kilometers.
And how accessible is it communication-wise?
Definitely, we have areas that have very good communication and a few that have very poor communication, but we are working on it. But I don't...
I'm asking because somehow its results always come last. Is it the distance? Is it communication?
I don't want to agree with you on that.
I'm just asking.
It just happened once in the year 2007,
yeah.
and that is a reference that is always used because it was the crucial vote that was really needed to tip the scale, and that is why it's always in the people's mind. They feel it's the one that gave Kibaki the win. So some people are very bitter with it, but it's just not the county. But when it comes to voting, I can tell you that our people have a lot of loyalty in giving the numbers and backing out the people.
What really makes them turn out to vote?
I think it's a culture.
The inspiring factor?
It's a culture, and I will tell you where this culture came from. In the Moi regime, we were totally marginalized because we always backed Mzee Kibaki, and even our members of parliament mostly used to be DP around that time. And because of that marginalization, we only used to come out and vote in very large numbers to see whether we can really salvage the situation. And I think it is our resilience that eventually got the country regime out of the office. Although now we brought the country regime back in another form of Jubilee, Uhuru Kenyatta, because at one time we voted against it, but later it was not really Uhuru Kenyatta we were voting against. It was because of Moi. I want to tell you, before the Kibaki regime, it used to take us 3.5 hours to 4 hours from here to travel that distance of 180 kilometers because the road was pathetic. The moment the leadership of Kibaki came, it takes only 2 hours. After I leave this show, I'll be in the constituency in another 2 hours.
But don't say only Kibaki. The government of Kibaki and Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, it was a coalition.
The first term of Kibaki is when it was a coalition.
Who was minister? Just a minute. Who was minister for roads?
Who was the minister for roads?
That time it was Frank Metz.
No, it was Honorable Raila Amolo.
I'm telling you,
swing votes.
Even the road.
Okay. We'll get to that. Swing votes.
Swing votes. What thing I need to say is IBC needs to prepare for a runoff. Because it is not clear right now, as the numbers show, as many people say, numbers don't lie. It is not going to be 50+1. That has come out very clearly. And depending on what Mheshimiwa has even said, that depending on how both sides, Jubilee and NASA, campaign and go out to get the vote, then IBC should be preparing for the runoff. Swing votes, yes, these can be worked on. And of course, both sides are going to be campaigning in those areas to make sure that this comes to their favor.
For the sake of my
For the runoff especially, then they will determine.
For the sake of my viewers, Mheshimiwa Muthomi Njuki has been alluding to the fact that you are leaning towards NASA. So, just make it clear. Are you?
Yes. I'm the chair of the Ford Kenya Women League, and Ford Kenya is a party.
So we rest that. Yes. Thank you very much. We'll be taking a short commercial break again, and when we come back, the aspirations of this gentleman here towards the gubernatorial seat. This is the news review segment of the Power Breakfast Show.